So good afternoon. This is Mike Anderson of Collision Advice. And again, we appreciate you attending our webinar. So with it being 2:01 p.m., we're now going to jump into this. So today's webinar is entitled Learn to Research and Research to Learn: How to Utilize Toyota's TIS in order to ensure a safe and proper repair. First of all attendees have been muted. However, questions are encouraged. So to ask questions during the webinar, you can use the questions feature in the GoToWebinar panel, of which Tracy Dombrowski, my coworker, will be monitoring. Or what we would prefer is that you would text your questions to Tracy at 571-458-0648. Now, it's really important that you also include your name, and if you're a shop or an insurance carrier, please include your title or what company you work for so we can ask your question during the webinar. We are very pleased to have several members of the Toyota team on this webinar, and they will be to answer your questions. A recording of this webinar, will also be made available after the webinar, so in case you want to share with your staff, or if you get interrupted or have to log off early, we will be able to share the webinar. We will make this recorded version of this webinar free to the entire industry, and it will be posted on the Collision Advice website, as well as possibly the Sika website. So again, this webinar is brought to you on behalf of Collision Advice in partnership with Toyota. And Collision Advice would also like to acknowledge Sika for their contributions to the collision repair industry. Today's panelists. Today we have Agustin Diaz, who is one of the training directors for Toyota Motor Sales of US. We also have Paul Stella, who is the collision manager for Toyota of Canada. So Agustin Diaz and Paul Stella, thank you for your assistance and support in preparing this presentation. And I am Mike Anderson, the owner of Collision Advice. We always need to cover antitrust guidelines before we get started. It is understood that in today's session, we will not discuss any issues that would violate antitrust guidelines. Avoiding violations of the antitrust laws is the responsibility and legal obligation of the business owner. Any discussion of current prices or discounts with a competitor should be strictly avoided. And in our industry, this includes discounts, time hourly rates, charges to insurance companies, individuals, fleet owners, dealers, or other shops that repair vehicles. Surveys of prices, discounts, and costs are permissible, but only under strict guidelines, and only if they are not part of a conspiracy to fix prices or otherwise restrain trade. Cost studies that lead to price fixing or price stabilizing agreements would violate United States antitrust laws, as well as those of Canada. And please remember that the prices you charge must be calculated and determined by the business owner alone, and these prices should take into account the cost of doing business and include allowances for a reasonable profit. All content of this workshop is based on standard economic and management principles. Profit margins, labor rates, etc. used in this presentation are to be taken as examples only. The intent of this workshop is to provide attendees with basic management skills, leaving them free to determine their own individual rates, profit percentages, and other operating management aspects of their businesses on a strictly independent basis using generally accepted management principles. So with that said, let's get started. So a lot of people ask me, Mike, why do you want to do these monthly webinars? Well, I want to do them because I believe, and I'm very concerned, that in our industry, we may not be doing a safe and proper repair on all the vehicles that are fixed. And what leads me to that is that, as many of you know, each quarter, Collision Advice, in conjunction with the Crash Network, John Yoswick, we conduct surveys from the industry called Who Pays for What? And one of the questions that we ask is, how frequently do you research OEM repair procedures at the time you write an estimate? And while 17% of the shops said they do it all the time this year, as opposed to last year and the previous year of only being 16%, we felt that this should be 100%. A lot of times people ask us, Mike, why do I need to research the home repair procedure if I fix the same vehicle every single day? Well, I'll give you an example. There's one vehicle manufacturer that actually changed the way you put a bedside on their vehicles 4 times last year. I can also tell you that recently there was a Toyota that we know of a part that was non-reusable, but today Toyota actually makes clips for that part, so it no longer is. So it's very important that we actually research OEM repair procedures all the time. Now, the next thing we did is we asked shops, how do you research OEM repair procedures? And we saw that 68% of the shops were using all data, and about 45% were using the OEM manufacturers' websites directly. And when we interviewed and surveyed shops, we found that many of them did not utilize the OEM websites directly because they did not know how to navigate the websites. So our goal today is to show you how to navigate a specific OEM manufacturer's website. In today's case, it would be Toyota, Lexus, and how to utilize that from a collision repairer's perspective. Our desired outcome is that we will actually teach you the steps in regards to how to log into the website, what are the different areas of the website, and how to improve your search results. We also are going to teach you during these monthly webinars on how to research some common procedures that are needed by collision repairers. We're also going to talk about some things about OEM parts and as well as some of the support tools and what to do, last but not least, if you can't find what you're looking for. First of all, we're going to begin with a polling question. Right now, we'd like to just do a quick poll to see what type of attendees are currently on our webinar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll, and if you would take a moment and just select an option on your keyboard, are you a collision repairer, an insurance industry executive, an OEM representative, or other? Or if you sell like paint or equipment, then maybe you'll be an equipment, paint, job, or distributor. We're collecting responses right now. About 70% of all the attendees have currently voted. Currently we have 500, actually currently we have over 700 people already registered and attending that are viewing this webinar live right now. All right, we're going to go ahead and close out our poll. And right now we see that 82% of the attendees on this webinar are collision repair shops. We see that 3% represent either equipment or a paint manufacturer or distributor. 3% are from the insurance industry, 2% OEM representatives, and 10% other. So Tracy, who's with me, I want to make sure now I've closed the poll, I can go back and share my screen. Okay, so let's jump back into our webinar. First of all, how do we access Toyota's TIS? Well, first of all, you will go to this website. No matter whether you're in the US or Canada, it is the same website, techfinfo.toyota.com. Now, if you're a current user and you have a subscriber login, you will log into the left. If you have never accessed TIS before, then you will need to create an account and you will hit the subscribe button. Once you do that, you will see that there are 3 different versions of TIS that are available to you as a user. The first is the standard version, which gives you access to all of the printed materials. The second version is the professional diagnostic version, which gives you printed materials plus the TechStream software to do scanning. And the third is what's called the Security Professional. Now, this is only going to be available to dealers. So for those of you independent collision repairers, I would suggest that you actually subscribe to the Professional Diagnostic feature. Keep in mind that Toyota's TIS includes all the vital information that you will need to effectively service most 1990 and newer Toyota products. Again, if you have any questions during this webinar, please text them to Tracy Dombrowski at 571-458-0648. Now, one of the other things that we really liked about Toyota's website when we started to research and use Toyota's website is when you go to the first page where you log in at, on the very right-hand side, there was actually a tutorial on how to use Toyota's TIS features. I would encourage you to watch that video. It's not a very long video, and I appreciate Toyota promoting that and providing it on the website. And this is a video that you can watch even if you don't have an account. So when we go ahead and we log into Toyota's TIS and you put in your username and password, you're going to start to see a couple tabs. And one of those is called the Vehicle Inquiry tab. So what's going to happen is I'm going to first log into my website, and once I log in, this is what I'm going to see. Now you'll notice at the top it says Home and TIS. Right below that is My Documents. That's any favorite documents that you've saved anytime you've been into TIS. What's new is what new features might be on some new Toyota vehicles you need to be aware of, or any new resources available to you from Toyota. And then again on the top right-hand side, it shows you some of the recent tech tips and service bulletins or recent documents that you've researched. So you're going to see this first. But what we're going to do is once we get into this, we're actually going to select the Vehicle Inquiry tab. Now I'm going to select TIS first. So once I select TIS, I will then go into the Vehicle Inquiry tab. So there's 2 tabs here, Library and Vehicle Inquiry. I will select the Vehicle Inquiry tab, and this is where I'll put the 17-digit VIN in from the vehicle. And what I will do is I will hit the tab that says Lookup. And what it does is it will tell me if there's any specific recalls on that vehicle. It will also tell me if that vehicle the vehicle owner is subscribed to something called Safety Connect, which is, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, would be the equivalent of like what GM has with OnStar. And it's also going to tell you any options that are based on the build data for that specific vehicle. So let's see what happens here. I select Vehicle Inquiry and I put the VIN number in. You'll see here that after I put the VIN number in, it automatically is going to pull up. It tells me that this is a Lexus, tells me what type of Lexus, tells me what year Lexus, tells me that the vehicle was made in the USA, and you'll see at the very bottom it says campaign. So if there were any outstanding recalls on this vehicle, it would actually show up here for me. Now, the second thing you're going to see is you're going to see where it says telematics subscription, Safety Connect, and the status will say either active or inactive. This is very important to you as a collision repairer, because if this vehicle has Safety Connect and it is active, it may require you disabling that system before you actually begin to repair the vehicle. If you do not, then Toyota could be notified when you start disassembling the vehicle, and in Toyota's mind, they may think there's a problem with the vehicle, and then they contact the customer, and the customer may end up getting an email. So it's very important for you as a collision repairer to decode the VIN and TIS so you can see if they subscribe to Safety Connect or not. Now, here's an example we found when we found a vehicle that was subscribed to Safety Connect. This was a 2018 Toyota Camry. And what happened was we actually saw an option here that says when automatic collision notification is activated, there's a process you have to go through to disable this. This is going to be very important to all collision repairers in the future before you begin work on any Toyota Lexus vehicle, is to understand if the customer subscribes to Safety Connect. Now, another thing you will see is when you decode the VIN, you will see that it also gives you all the vehicle options. I really like this because what this does is this helps me to make sure I select the right part on the estimate the first time. The other thing it does is some of these keywords like navigation, intuitive park assist. These are some of the things that I'm going to be using in the search feature later on to determine how to do a proper repair on this vehicle. Here's another benefit of understanding the build data. You know, if you were to go and fix a Toyota Camry, you would see on the side of the deck lid it says SE. So I know when I go to write my estimate, I need to select the parts for an SE. However, as many of you are probably aware, when I go to write an estimate on a Toyota Prius will only say on the deck lid that it's a Prius or a hybrid. It will not have an emblem such as the Camry does with the SE. So I will not know what the trim code is on that vehicle. And if I don't know the trim code, I may not select the right part. A lot of times the estimating system, CCC Mitchell Autotex, while they do get some build information from the OEM manufacturers, they can't always drill down and tell you what trim package is on that vehicle. So the only way you would know is to either decode the vehicle through TIS or call your local dealership so we can select the right part the first time. So Tracy Dabrowski, who's with me as a coworker, said she has a question that someone just texted in. Tracy, what question do we have?
So Joe Leroy from ProCare wants to know if you research on TIS, does it flag anything on Carfax?
So the question is if you research anything on TIS, does it flag anything on Carfax? And the answer to that, Joe, would be no. When you log into TIS, it will not provide any information to Carfax at all. Thanks for your question, Joe.
I also have a couple questions from various people on the cost for TIS.
So, Augie, if you're still on the line, can you tell us, sir, what is the cost for TIS if someone wanted to subscribe to TIS? Is that something you can answer for us? And Tiffany, can you please make sure that Augie is unmuted? So we're just waiting for Augustin Diaz. Augustin Diaz from Toyota, are you on the line, sir?
Yes. Yeah, we have subscription terms are 2-day, $15, monthly, $75, and yearly, $400.
So a shop could subscribe to TIS, have a full year's worth of use for $400.
Yes.
Thank you, Augie. What other questions, Tracy?
Augie, is there a charge for an insurance carrier to have access to TIS?
So insurance carriers and shops both do need to pay to subscribe to TIS. I do know that some of the insurance companies, they subscribe to it from a corporate level. But Augie, can you just verify that what I'm sharing is correct? Both shops and insurers have to pay to access TIS. Is that correct, sir?
Yes. And about the special price, it's a case-by-case basis. They have to contact us.
Okay, contact you at corporate. Okay, yes. Tracy, any other questions?
That's it for right now.
Okay, let's continue on. So, now what's in the library tab? So again, when I go back here into TIS and I log in, you're going to see a tab that says TIS. And when it opens up, you're going to see several options: library, diagnostics, tech assist, or vehicle inquiry. Now, vehicle inquiry was obviously where I put the VIN number of the vehicle in, and it decoded it for me. The other tab that you're probably going to most commonly use is going to be the library tab. Now, when I go and select the library tab, you're going to see several tabs along the bottom. So let's share with you what some of these tabs mean. The first tab you'll see on the left-hand side is the summary. This is going to have a summary of all manuals. The second tab is SB-TT, and that stands for Service Bulletins and Tech Tips. It is in this area that you might find some technical tips as well as service bulletins that may pertain to something like scanning. Then you have QTG, which stands for Quick Training Guides. This would be some quick training guides that might tell you how to perform, for example, like a 0-point calibration. And then you have RM, which stands for Repair Manual. I will tell you that if I had to pick the 2 tabs that you will utilize the most as a collision repairer, RM will be the first. The Repair Manual is the tab you're going to select that's going to tell you how to take a vehicle apart. It's like if you never had a bumper off before, you've never had a fender off before, it's going to tell you how to remove that component. It's also going to have your different specifications, any work notices, precautions, or calibrations. The next tab is EWD, which is electrical wiring diagrams. And then we have NCF, which stands for New Car Features. We're not going to get a chance too much to talk about this tab today in the webinar due to the time restraints. However, I want you to know that I love this tab. I like to look at this tab because it tells me any new substrates that may be on the vehicle, as well as any new pre-accident or pre-collision avoidance systems. Now, the next tab we'll see is SC, which stands for Service Campaigns, which is where you'll find all of your recalls, followed by Accessories. This is where you would find information like if the vehicle had running boards on it or a trailer hitch or something of that nature. And the last but not least is the second tab most commonly used by collision repairers, and that is going to be CR for Collision Repair Manual. This is where you're going to find your information that's very specific to your body specifications, gap dimensions, welding points, and anything having to do with like corrosion protections or paint and coatings. So let's go ahead and move on. Keep in mind that the RM and CR tabs will be the ones most commonly used by collision repairers. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to utilize the search feature within TIS. So I have one of my coworkers here with me, Tracy Dombrowski. So Tracy, would you share with members a little bit about how the search feature works in TIS?
So the search feature in TIS uses what's called a Boolean string search logic, which means that you can add some additional terminology when searching for things to get better results. So if you put the word "and" between 2 terms, what it will do is it will look and bring up only documents that contain both items in the search results. If you put "or" between the 2 terms, it'll bring up any document that has one term or the other term in the search feature. And if you add "not" plus another word, it'll look for, like in this instance, recalibration, not ECU. It would eliminate ECU from the search results. If you have multiple words in a string, you can put them in quotes, and then it'll make sure that only those things within the quotes are searched for.
Okay, so thank you for Tracy. So one of the things you'll see is that TIS has a very robust search feature that I would encourage all collision repair industry segments, insurers and shops to both understand how to utilize. Let's give you a little example here. You'll see where we put in the word recalibration and ECU. So you'll see here that what it did was it came up and told us that in this instance, there were no technical tips in regards to recalibration ECU. It says no documents found. And then you'll also see where it says Mexico tech tip. That is because there is not uncommon for you to see that there may be a variety of different tech tips based on the country that you're actually repairing the vehicle in or where the vehicle was produced, such as Canada, Mexico, US. You'll see in this case that it said there were 3 documents found that had to do with the words recalibration and ECU. Now, one of the things you can also do is anytime you find a document that you like, you'll see a little star. Select that star and you can actually add it to your favorites. In addition, you'll see in a section where you can rate the document. Yes, Toyota does listen to voice of the customer, as well as does Lexus. So if there's a document that you felt maybe didn't exactly give you what you wanted, it wasn't exactly what you expected, you can actually rate the document. And then what else you can do is you can go to where it says submit a correction. So if you go to where it says submit a correction, you will see there that you will have a chance where Toyota will actually take, and when you submit this, click on that option, and it says submit a correction, you will see where you can actually provide feedback to Toyota. So if you felt that maybe Toyota had something in error or it wasn't exactly the way it was represented. So I got to really give basically an applaud and a hip hip hooray for Toyota because of the fact that they're so open to the voice of the customer. Now, keep in mind, there are several tabs and several different resources available in TIS, but due to the time limits of this webinar, we're unable to showcase each tab and its content. However, we will showcase the tabs that are most commonly used relative to collision repair, and based on your feedback at the end of this webinar, if you found value, we will do a part 2. Now, what kind of information can you find in the CR or Collision Repair Manual tab? Some of the things you might find in the CR or Collision Repair Manual tab is things like where to cut and weld a component. What are the vehicle dimensions on this vehicle? Any information about painting, seam sealer, corrosion protection, body foam, and much, much more. So let's take a look. First of all, you'll see here that when we went to the CR tab, what we did is we actually went and we hit the search button. And what we did is once we hit search, you'll put in your type of vehicle, like in this case, it was a 2016 Toyota Camry. So what I do is once I go and I put search in here and I hit search, it's now going to bring up all the different documents that have to do with the Toyota Camry. You'll see in this case, 70 documents were found. What I will do is I will select one of these documents. You could select any document you wanted. But in this case, what we did was we selected the option that said structural outline. Once we selected structural outline, you'll see that it pops up and you'll see a decision tree on your left-hand side. You can navigate that decision tree within the Collision Repair Manual by clicking any of those sections on that side. So you'll see, for example, on the structural outline is how we found out what this vehicle was actually made out of. So what components it was made out of. And you'll see in some cases, maybe if it was a hood, it would show you the hood was aluminum, for example. Now, here's one of the other things I liked about it, is it's also going to show you on the structural outline what types of steels are on this vehicle. And this is very, very important to you in regards to whether that component can be repaired or replaced or sectioned or not. Keep in mind, also, these new types of metals that are used in the vehicle's manufacturing process can also be found in the NCF or New Car Features tab. Now, I'm going to share with you my favorite thing. I mean, I got a lot of things in TIS I love, but this was my favorite. There was something called a damage diagnosis document. So I went into CR, which is the Collision Repair Manual tab. I then navigated the decision tree down to where it says damage diagnosis. And you'll see that's right under the introduction tab. I love this damage diagnosis document. I've never seen anything like this with any other vehicle manufacturer. And let me tell you what this does. This shows you that based on this specific vehicle, if this vehicle is in an accident, how the inertia forces are designed to transfer throughout the vehicle. Now, let me tell you why that's important, because that's going to tell me as an estimator or a technician where I need to look at for damage. So if you see, for example, and I'm going to switch to the next page here, and again, this comes right out of Toyota TIS. What I'm showing you came right out of TIS. It's called the damage diagnosis document. And it tells me if a vehicle was hit along this bumper reinforcement, that the inertia forces are designed to travel up along the A-pillar, along the roof area, as well as down low along the rocker panel. But it's telling me in these areas like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are areas that Toyota is designed to give. Some people might call these crush zones, right? So I know on this specific 2018 Toyota Camry, I need to inspect those areas. Now, this may mean that I got to remove the cowl cover to remove in the wiper arms to look at the cowl area. Well, you know what? If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. I would encourage you to itemize that on your estimate, along with a line note is what made you remove those components. But love this document from Toyota. Here's another example of a damage diagnosis document showing you that this vehicle got hit on the side. You'll see here, but it's hit on the side where the center pillar's at. It's actually made to divert the inertia forces along the door intrusion beam and direct that across the firewall. I got to tell you, in my lifetime, I didn't always look at the firewall for damage, but I'll tell you what, I will from now on, thanks to Toyota's damage diagnosis document. Here's another cool thing we found in TIS in the Collision Repair tab, and that is procedures needed when you disconnect a battery or R&I other parts. So what we did is, again, we went to the Collision Repair Manual, and when we went to the decision tree on the left-hand side, we saw a little arrow there that says, when removing and installing, repairing, or replacing parts. So what we did is we selected this, right? So now I go and I select it, and what it did is you'll see if something came up here that said procedures necessary when a battery terminal is disconnected or reconnected. Well, I got to tell you, if you go to replace a fender on some Toyotas, there's a ground wire that you have to disconnect. But before I do that, I have to disconnect the battery. Well, in this case here, if I would not have researched this and I disconnected the battery and I did not go back and correct the steering angle neutral point after the fact, then the parking assist monitor system would not work, and that could lead to a consumer having an accident. Yeah, you heard it right. When we disconnect a battery, not just a Toyota, but any vehicle, as well as like a Lexus, you need to be researching to see what procedures are necessary when you disconnect the battery terminal. And by the way, I got to give a shout out to my friend Jake Rodenroth with Aztec, because he's the one that taught me about this. So again, anytime you're going to disconnect a battery on a Toyota or Lexus vehicle, you need to research under the Collision Repair Manual tab what procedures are necessary when you disconnect the battery. And the other good thing about this is it shows you that if you don't do this procedure, what the possible problem could be as a result of that. You'll look right here, it tells me that when I disconnect the ECU, there's other things that I have to do here as well. Or let's go a step further. How about this one? When I go to replace a door or a door window regulator, it tells me that I actually have to initialize the power window control system. And if I don't, the up and down function won't work and some of the other things won't work as well. So at the end of the day, it's important that when we disconnect any type of component, we actually go to this section of TIS to see what types of initializations or calibrations we need to do. Let's talk a little about blind spot monitors. We have a question, Tracy?
We have a few, yeah.
We have a few questions. Okay, let's go ahead.
So one of them is when you save a document as a favorite, does it prompt you if there's an update to that document?
So we'll allow that question for Augie from Toyota. So Toyota, Augie, if I save a document as my favorite and Toyota goes and changes something in that bulletin, will it update my favorite or I will not be notified of that, sir?
No, you would not be notified. You have to be monitoring this on a daily basis if possible, because if you go to recent documents and tech tips, there is every day we publish updating. It's like sending an email to a customer, a shop. Okay, every day we change. We have mid-year run changes on the designs and everything. We send the information right away. And this is a way how we communicate on a daily basis with the shops. Some shops, they ignore it and then they pay the price. So we would recommend to go to recent tech tips and service bulletins.
Okay, thank you, Augie. And then Augie, we have another question for you. And this one is from Brian from Iowa, from Vaughn Automotive. And his question is, are the body repair procedures as far as structural, does ICAR recognize TIS? And I can tell you the answer to that would be yes. Anytime you take an ICAR class or read any ICAR material, they will always tell you that the OEM repair procedures take precedence over anything that they teach and always follow the OEM repair manufacturer's procedures. Would you agree with that, Augie?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, next question.
The next question, I'm not sure who it's from, but it says, is OEM One Stop, are the position statements on OEM One Stop approved and updated by Toyota?
So on OEM One Stop, that is a one-stop shop to get access to all the variety of OEM websites. And the question is, are the position statements on OEM One Stop, are those accurate and current from Toyota or Lexus, Augie?
Well, what I would recommend the industry is to follow what it's on TIS, on the repair manual, because we're updating it every day whenever it's necessary, and we put it in there for everybody to see. I cannot comment on other organizations because I don't follow them.
I would say to the person that asked that question, and in most cases, I believe the most current OEM position statements will be on there because most of the OEMs belong to something called an OEM roundtable, and there's a gentleman by the name of Chris Karras who kind of oversees that to keep that updated. But if you can email me directly, I'll get a better clarity answer for you and let you know that. But in my opinion, I do believe they are kept pretty current. But understand that's just the position statements. It's not any of the crib bulletins or anything like that. Okay, jump back into this. So let's talk a little bit about blind spot monitors. You know, I got to tell you, every OEM manufacturer that I get the honor and privilege to work with, when I ask them what keeps them awake at night, it's always the same thing, and it's liability. Liability is the biggest concern they have. Let me share a story with you. There was a shop that repaired a quarter panel on a Toyota, and they repaired the quarter panel in the area where the blind spot monitor mounted at. Now, this was a non-certified Toyota repair shop. When they fixed the quarter panel and they reinstalled the blind spot monitor, there were no warning lights on the vehicle, and they released it back to the consumer. She was driving down the road, went to change lanes, and her blind spot monitor said it was okay, and it was not okay. Scared her to death, so she took it back to the shop, who then took the vehicle and had it scanned with a Toyota factory scan tool. And what they found out was that the blind spot monitor was misaligned by 7 degrees. And when you research Toyota through TIS, you will see that Toyota says it has a maximum of a 5 degrees tolerance. And it also requires a very specific calibration. So my concern was how many shops are repairing or replacing quarter panels on Toyotas that may have a blind spot monitor, and what should we do? So what we did is we said, let's go to the authority, which is TIS. So in this case, we went back to the collision repair manual, and you'll see we navigated the collision tree on the left-hand side, and you'll see there was a section with a little plus signs that says when removing, installing, and repairing and replacing parts. Once we selected that, it dropped down and you'll see there was a tab that said precautions for blind spot monitor. So what we did is we researched this, and one of the things we saw in here was that Toyota actually says this: repair or replace the quarter panel, and then check the installation angle of the blind spot monitor sensor. And then what happens is, if the blind spot monitor sensor will not align properly, go back and either re-repair or replace the quarter panel. And so what we need to understand is, it's not just about calibrating the blind spot monitor after the vehicle's been completed. It's about actually checking the angle of the blind spot monitor before you paint the vehicle. So even if you replace the quarter panel, you should check the angle of the blind spot monitor. Then you'll go, and by the way, that also could include reinstalling the blind spot monitor and the bumper cover. And then after we have to take them back off, paint the vehicle, we have to reinstall them again. So this comes directly from Toyota. You'll see what Toyota says right here in TIFs. And by the way, Toyota has a publication. They publish quarterly, and it's called the Collision Pros magazine. And this actually came right out of the Collision Pros magazine produced by Toyota in the summer of 2017. And it says, when you repair or replace the quarter panel, check the installation angle and the orientation of the blind spot monitor. And then what will happen is, then you will refinish the vehicle. And once you refinish the vehicle, then you will have to go back and calibrate the blind spot monitor. Keep in mind, the initial orientation and installation angle check will be done with a plumb bob, and there's a certain procedure through Toyota TIFs. The calibration requires the use of a factory scan tool as well as a very specific target. Another thing we learned about was, a lot of times we see that a lot of people are really focused on repair versus replace, and we understand that as an industry. But we want to say, you know, with all these new active avoidance systems, how do I know if I can actually use any filler material to repair this bumper cover? It's a big concern that I would have as a collision repairer. So one of the things we did was we reached out to Toyota and said, how will I know if it's okay for me to fix this bumper cover or not? And what Toyota taught us was, again, go into the collision repair manual. And when you go to the collision repair manual, you will actually go to the decision tree. You will drop down. You will see again where it says precautions for blind spot monitor. And you'll see right here what Toyota says in TIFs. The following work is prohibited within the radiation ranges of electromagnetic waves because they might affect the waves. What would that mean? It means putty application or repair of a damaged area may be prohibited. So what we need to do is understand that, yes, you may be able to use some filler in certain areas of a bumper cover, but absolutely not in this area where the radar area is at. Again, you can also make sure that if you're looking for this in TIFs, use the search feature and type in the words such as bumper and precaution. So remember how Tracy taught you a few minutes ago, bumper or precaution. What you want to do is put in the words for search terms, bumper and precaution. Now let's talk a little bit about welding. When we go to the collision repair manual, obviously welding is a big deal. Again, we're going to navigate down to the left side of the tree, and you're going to see where it says precautions for welding. When we selected that, that actually started to tell us a lot about what we needed to do in order to do a proper repair on this vehicle in regards to anything having to do with welding. You'll notice one of the things is that it says, notice if the paint film is damaged, make sure you refinish the part. What are they speaking of? They're speaking of weld burn damage. So if you weld a new quarter panel in or rocker panel, Toyota absolutely insists that you must take and prime and paint those adjacent panels from weld damage. Another thing that you can find in this same tab, if you scroll down, is it's going to tell you the types of welds or wire type or gas needed, as well as the number of welds you may need. This is really, really important as well, to make sure you're using the right welder with the right type of weld, gas type, and wire type. In addition, if you go in this same section, you'll see something that's called a body weld point. Body weld point. If I click on this, you see that when I click on that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now drop down to where it says quarter panel, because it shows me everything that welds into a Toyota. And if I click on quarter panel, for example, it's going to now show me exactly where this quarter panel is intended to be welded at, where it's supposed to be replaced at, what types of welds, etc. So again, go to body weld point, and it's going to show you all the different components that weld into a Toyota and what the proper welding procedure is. Now you'll also see in this same section, as I scroll down, it's going to tell me if there's any panel bonding adhesive that is required by Toyota in this case. And again, you'll see in this case that Toyota calls out a very specific part number, which in this case is 3M panel bonding adhesive 8115. It's always important to only use the adhesives that are approved by the vehicle manufacturer. If another company tells you it's okay to use our product, if it's not approved by the OEM and you don't see it in the OEM repair procedures, do not use that stuff. What else does Toyota say about welding? First of all, Toyota states that the battery should be disconnected prior to welding. Toyota states that any electronics within 18 inches of the weld site should be removed. So for example, if you're replacing a quarter panel, you may have to remove an airbag sensor, the overhead airbag, the wiring harness, a speaker, etc. Also think in mind, what types of things do you need to remove from that Toyota or Lexus in order to dress and clean your welds? Toyota also states that you need to set up and perform destructive test welds before welding on one of their vehicles. And keep in mind that if Toyota says we need to disconnect the battery before welding, we also need to understand what types of procedures may we have to reinitialize or recalibrate when we reconnect the battery. So right here, you will see that Toyota actually has something called a CRIB bulletin. That is a collision repair information bulletin number 161 that says disconnect the negative battery terminal and remove any electronic units within 18 inches of weld sites. Now this is really important. The reason it's important is because other vehicle manufacturers only say 12 inches. iCar states 12 inches. Toyota says 18, and the same would apply for Lexus. You also see here that if you were to become Toyota certified and you were to take a welding test for Toyota certification, the Toyota clearly states out in their Toyota training manual that you should always, or it says must, you must always perform a destructive test to your practice welds for performing final welds on a vehicle. So keep in mind, a destructive test weld is also a not included operation. If you're not sure of that, please submit an inquiry to the www.degweb.org website, and Danny from the DEG would be glad to get you an answer on that from CCC Mitchell Autotech. But performing destructive test welds is required by Toyota and is a not included operation. You also see that Toyota has a CRIB bulletin on this, on Bulletin 181. Tracy, you said we have another question.
We do. So a couple people want to know, can independent shops be Toyota certified?
So currently today, you cannot be a Toyota certified shop unless they are owned by a dealership. You, however, can, if you have sponsorship from your dealership, you can send your employees to factory training. You will not be certified, but you can still gain the factory training that certified shops go to. But currently today, you cannot be a certified body shop unless you're owned by a Toyota dealership. But again, Toyota training is available to you if your dealership will sponsor you. Augie, did I get that correct, sir?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Independents can get training, factory training, and basically that's the most important thing in our industry, to repair Toyota Lexus vehicles correctly and safely for our customers.
Thank you, Augie.
Another question is,
we have another question, Augie?
Is there a list of approved welding equipment on TIS?
So Toyota does not endorse or recommend specific equipment or require specific equipment in regards to brand names. What Toyota does do, or Lexus for that case, is they give you the specifications for the equipment. Is that correct, Augie?
Correct. If you notice in the repair manual, says you must use a welding machine that it has inverter technology, at least 10,000 amps, with a capacity of 685 pounds pressure. So, you know, and also in our repair manuals, we also request to have a certain size of the nuggets, the weld nuggets, like 5 millimeters, 3 millimeters, etc.
Thank you, Augie. Okay. One more
question, Augie.
How often does TIS communicate with the estimating databases or all data and the other search methods to update the repair procedures?
So currently the process is that Toyota has a direct relationship with Mitchell International, which is an estimating system utilized in both the U.S. and Canada. And Toyota does have a partnership with them where they supply them with any changes or updates in the repair procedures if they're using Mitchell's Toyota estimating model. In regards to CCC or Autotex, where they might, CCC in this case would use motors and then they would license a version of Toyota. Toyota does not update them when there are changes. It is up to those third-party companies such as AllData or CCC's Repair Methods or anyone else to take it up on their own to research and make those changes. It has been my experience that most of your third-party software providers are only updating the information quarterly versus Toyota might make multiple changes just hypothetically, for an example, in the same month. So that's why it's really important that if it's a very serious thing, while we recognize the use of third parties, that going to TIS directly is always going to give you the most recent information, because while other companies license the information from Toyota, Toyota cannot be reassure you or be assured that those companies are updating it real time. Augie, would you have anything to add to that, sir?
Yes, like I mentioned before, on the home page, you have on the right-hand side, you have recent tech tips and service bulletins. That's the, if you notice, if you check it every day, you'll see it that, we update the information on a daily basis practically. So that's the best resource.
Okay, we have a question from a body shop in California about blind spot monitors, and we're going to hold that question and a little bit more until we get into it, Tracy. But we will answer your question. Okay, look right here what Toyota says also in TIS. It says that your welding substitutions should match factory spot welds in size, strength, and appearance. If replacement welds are larger or smaller, resize electrode contact tip to match, and do not weld over factory weld locations. My question for you is, how would this influence your decisions on LKQ or salvage quarter panels? At the end of the day, I don't believe my opinion means anything. I think the only thing that matters is what I can prove, substantiate, or justify. And at the end of the day, when it comes to used quarter panels, I would have to question you, can you actually match the factory spot welds in size, strength, and appearance? And I think that you would find in this case, in putting a used quarter panel on, you would not. Now, how do you find these crib bulletins? Because a lot of times people talk about crib bulletins. Well, first of all, what you can do is you can go into, obviously we're into TIS, and you'll go into the CR tab, which is collision repair tab, and then you can just go in where it says a keyword, and you can just type in the word crib, or if you know exactly what you're looking for, crib welding, and that is how it will pull up all of your crib bulletins for you so you can see them. Now, some of the other things that Toyota has in TIS is under the collision repair manual. You'll see here again on the left-hand side in the decision tree, it says for work notices and precautions. Work notices and precautions. When I look at this, this is where I'm going to find precautions that Toyota may have, like, not to use, I can't repair a door intrusion beam, or I can't, repair a bumper reinforcement. That's where you're going to find those types of information. However, one of the other things you'll find is where Toyota has very specific requirements into how you attach a Toyota or Lexus vehicle to the pinch welds. You'll see that Toyota very clearly states, and this would be in the United States Toyota Crib Bulletin 57, and if you're in Canada, it would be 2027. And they have a crib bulletin that states you must remove all coatings at contact locations that may build up on clamps and reduce their gripping ability. So at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we remove any undercoating or seam sealer from the pinch welds before we put a clamp on a pinch weld. So understand again, how would you classify that on an estimate? That might be prep pinch welds before and after clamp installation. But clearly understand, if you're taking and putting a clamp over undercoating or seam sealer on the pinch welds of a Toyota or Lexus, they consider that an improper repair. Sectioning locations. How do I know when and where I can section something? Well, first of all, Toyota has a crib bulletin on that, and it's crib bulletin 176 that has some very specific requirements in regards to what you can and cannot do in regards to repair methods. One of the things that you'll see is on the right-hand side where it says methods not approved is it says butt joint with backing or a sleeve is not approved. If you're an estimator and you're writing on an estimate to use a sleeve when you're replacing a quarter panel or rocker on a Toyota, that is an improper repair, and it's important to ensure that your technicians are not doing that. Now, if I go to the decision tree again on the left-hand side, you'll see where it says body weld point again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that, and as I click on that, you'll see it drops down to a variety of panels. You'll see there as I drop down, it also says, after I select a component, such as a quarter panel, for example, it's going to come up, and that's where I'm going to find out if I can section that component or if I need to replace it in its entirety. So whether it's a quarter panel or a rocker panel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to body weld point. From there, I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up a decision tree, and then I will select the specific panel that I'm going to weld and replace. And then when I click on that, it will tell me if that panel can be sectioned or not, or where it needs to be installed at, again, the proper welds, etc. Let's talk a little bit about adhesives. Obviously, there's a court case that the industry is talking about quite a bit down in Texas, and it was a question about whether structural foams or adhesives could be utilized in repair. Toyota does recommend some panel adhesive, but it is in very limited applications. So the only way you can know for sure if a Toyota or Lexus vehicle says it's okay to use panel adhesive is if it is actually documented within TIS or on a crib bulletin. You'll see here, for example, in this instance, I went to the body weld point. Once I selected that, I went to quarter panel. Once I selected quarter panel, it told me here in this instance that I could use 3M panel bonding adhesive 8115. So in this instance, in this specific area, and only in this specific area, can I use panel bonding adhesive, not in any other area. Also, one of the other things that I think a lot of industry members are not aware of is most of these panel bonding adhesives have very specific cure times. If you look here at Toyota, for example, it says here that the vehicle must dry for 60 minutes at 60 degrees Celsius, which is 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or at 77 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 hours. I hate to tell you how many shops I've been into where they actually took and they put the adhesive on when they were using a quarter panel, and it just sat in the shop during lunch or something, and the very next thing you know, they rolled it over to the paint shop. Well, when you do that, what you're doing is you're moving that vehicle before it's completely cured. So make sure on all vehicles that you check the cure time on that adhesive before you move that vehicle after you replace the panel and utilize it. Let's talk a little bit about corrosion protection. Toyota has a very good crib bulletin on this. It is crib bulletin 186. Tells you the different types of corrosion protection materials that are used on a Toyota or a Lexus or a Scion vehicle. And in some cases, even recommends or specifies specific products. Let's go back down here again, where I go to the Toyota Camry Collision Repair Manual tab. And when I drop down underneath body weld point, you'll see at the very bottom it says painting and coating. Painting and coating. Once I select that, you will now see where it shows me the different types of corrosion protection. So very clearly understand this. Your corrosion protection information in Toyota's TIS is going to be under the painting and coating section. When I go to that section, I will now see anti-chipping paint, which is like gravel guard, anti-rust agent, which would be things like cavity wax. Then you'll see sealer, which is like seam sealing or foams, and then undercoating. So it's really important we go here, and it will actually tell us what type of finish is supposed to be on there. You know, you'll see in this case, is it a flat finish or no flat finish? And it's going to show me the specific areas that are required to be seam sealed after the replacement of this panel. Again, Toyota also has some very good crib bulletins on this, and another crib bulletin would be crib bulletin number 82. You will see here again, if I go to body weld point, I select that, I go to quarter panel, I go down to where it says cut and join replacement sections. Once I go and I scroll down, you'll see again here, it tells me that I need to apply seam sealer to this very specific part. Let's talk a little bit about painting, because a lot of times we look at OEM repair procedures and we think it's only important for the body man to know how to do certain things. But you know what? It's important to the painter too. And here's why. Because one of the things that many vehicle manufacturers, including Toyota today, is they're using what's called LUTs. LUTs are limited use toners. These are toners that are used very infrequently, and they only have a small number of colors. And most collision repair centers do not stock these LUTs. So you would actually have to identify that this vehicle had an LUT, limited use toner, during the estimating process, so we could contact our jobber and get the toner in time. Also keep in mind that Toyota now has some actually quad coats. So what we need to do is when we go into TIS, we're going to go to vehicle inquiry, we're going to decode the VIN, and you'll see at the very bottom it tells me PC, which is paint code. It tells me PC is special color. That this vehicle is exterior color, 03T7 hypersonic red, but you'll see where it says accessories. This vehicle has a special paint code on it. That tells me automatically that I probably need to research this on my paint scale, because it may require a limited use toner that I need to contact my jobber or paint manufacturer to get in advance. One of the things I would encourage you to do, and as many of you know, I do work with Axalta Coating Systems, so I can only speak to them, but one of the things that many paint companies do is they will actually provide you as an estimator with a list called an Estimator's Guide to Special Colors. You'll see in this instance, the example that I got from Axalta was Axalta's Estimator's Guide to Special Colors, and it told me that this Toyota paint code 1EO actually has an LUT or limited use toner in it. Also tells me that all of these other Toyota paint codes are 3-stage. So I would encourage you to reach out to your paint manufacturer and ask them if they can provide you with a list of any vehicles, not just Toyota or Lexus, but any vehicle that might have a limited use toner in it and would also be 3-stage or in some cases 4-stage. I also want to point out that you could have a vehicle that has a limited use toner and be 3-stage both. Now, what kind of information can you find in the repair manual tab, the RM tab? So keep in mind, the two tabs you will use the most in TIS as a collision repairer, you will use them all, but the two you will use the most will be, number one will be CR for collision repair, and number two is RM for repair manual. Tracy, it looks like we have another question.
I do have another question from Chad at Burley's. He wants to know, how do you know if a crib bulletin is current?
So Chad, that's a great question, and shout out to Chad. Lots of love to you down there, brother. I appreciate you and your cowboy boots, man. Hey, Augie, can you answer that question for Chad down at Burley's? Can you tell him how would he know if he had the most recent crib bulletin?
Well, just go to TIS and punch in the vehicle, year, make, and model. And on the search field, he can type cribs and click on it. If he's there, right now we're in a process of purging all bulletins, not relevant to the technology, new technology anymore. But that's where you can find the most updated information on TIS.
All right, appreciate that, Augie. And Chad, thanks for the question, buddy. We have another question, Tracy.
The next question is there a way to charge insurance companies for access to research OEM procedures?
So that would be a question that would probably be difficult to answer in the course and the tone of this webinar. However, whoever asked that question, if you'd like to reach out to me directly, I'll be glad to have a side conversation with you. And I'll make sure you get my contact information at the end of the call.
One more real quick. So there's been a number of questions about why Toyota uses language like recommends or this may happen instead of stronger language.
So if we can hold that question, Tracy, we're going to allow Augie to show them some stuff within TIS at the end of the call.
Okay.
All right, just remind me of that. Okay, so let's go into RM for repair manual. When we go into the repair manual tab, what we'll do is the repair manual tab will show you some certain things. Number one is it'll tell you how to remove and install any type of component. So how to RNI a bumper, RNI a fender, RNI a door. It's going to show you things like any of your calibrations, your initializations. It's also going to show you like things such as your one-time use parts and any special service tools needed. So let's go ahead and show you a little bit about what the repair manual tab will provide you throughout TIS. First of all, if I go to the RM tab, repair manual, and then I go down and I just select any of these little icons I see beyond there. So any one of these, once I select those, it's automatically going to pop up my decision tree. Now I will go down to like where it says vehicle exterior or vehicle interior. If I go to the vehicle interior tab, for example, and I go ahead and I click on trim, and then I go ahead and I click on the rear bumper, you will see here that it automatically pulls up for me and tells me what I need to do in order to remove and replace that bumper. However, not just does it tell me what I need to do to remove the bumper, but it tells me that there are some necessary procedures such as measurement of ultrasonic sensor detection angles and also ultrasonic sensor detection angle registration. And it tells me that if I do not do this procedure, then these things over on the right-hand side will be inoperative. So understand, this is something as simple as I just removed the bumper. So the vehicle was key scratched. It was not even in an accident. It's just a key scratch. But I had to remove the bumper cover in order to paint the quarter panel. Well, after I removed the bumper cover, you can clearly see here that Toyota says there are some recalibrations that need to be done in regards to the ultrasonic sensor detection angle. Understand there are a lot of things that require the utilization of a scan tool that don't involve scanning. One of the other things I'd like to point out to you is anytime you see one of these little blue boxes that says info, that will be a hyperlink, and when you click on that, it will open up and show you more information. So let's look for here example, right? It says necessary procedure after parts are removed. Once I remove a bumper, I actually have to take and I have to do this necessary procedure, and if I don't, these things on the right side will not work. You can see down here, step by step, it tells me how I actually need to do this process. Now, this was something that was shared to us with some of our good friends in Canada. This was a 2018 Toyota Camry. And this vehicle has a feature that's called Park Assist Monitoring, Intelligent Clearance Sonar System. So here's what we need to understand. In this case here, if you just remove the bumper cover on this vehicle, all I did was remove the bumper cover. It wasn't even an accident. I just removed the bumper cover. Once I research it in TIS, it tells me that I have a very specific calibration that I have to do to this bumper cover in regards to the features on this vehicle. You see here on the top right-hand side, it says using the digital angle gauge, measure the angle of each sensor. This would be a not-included operation over and beyond the R&I labor for the bumper cover. However, more importantly is, when we go over here, we will see that Toyota says further in TIS, when the front bumper is damaged or deformed to an accident or contact with other objects, or the bumper installation on the bumper is repaired, it is necessary to perform millimeter wave radar sensor adjustment. It says it is necessary. You know, I know we got a question there earlier about why does Toyota sometimes not use really strong language like required, and they just use recommended. I will tell you in the position statements, you will generally find, verbiage like recommended, but where you find the strong words at is when you really dig down into TIS, like in this case where it says it's necessary. You also see right here that Toyota also says in this case, when you replace a windshield, it says when replacing the windshield glass of a vehicle equipped with a forward recognition camera, make sure to use a Toyota genuine part. If a non-Toyota genuine part is used, the forward recognition camera may not be able to be installed due to a missing bracket or the lane departure alert system, forward recognition camera system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the bottom line is basically what it's telling us is that these safety systems may not work properly if we use an aftermarket windshield. All of this, again, would be found under the repair manual tab, and you would find this specific example under removal of the windshield. Let's talk a little bit about special service tools and special service materials. Special service tools and materials can be found under the RM or the repair manual tab. Once I select the repair manual tab, my decision tree will pop up. I will go into where it says preparation. Again, I'll say that word again, preparation. And once I select that word, I will now select, for an example, this instance, cruise control. And now what it does is it automatically shows me all the different tools that I will need in order to do a calibration of that adaptive cruise control. So it's not just enough to have a scan tool, it's going to show me the specific targets that I'm going to need. You will see also here that if I look at like the door latch and the door hatch, it actually tells me there is a specific adhesive that is needed for this area as well, and it gives me the part number. Let's talk about non-reusable parts. One of the things that Toyota does a great job of in their Toyota TIS is it shows you a symbol to show you when a part is non-reusable. That means a one-time use part. And that is anytime you see a black dot. So if you're taking this webinar right now, I'd like you to take a pen or pencil and make a note somewhere and draw yourself a dot. Anytime you're in TIS and you're in the OEM repair procedures and you see a black dot, it means that part is one-time use and it must be replaced, even if it's not identified in the estimating system. So if you look here, Toyota actually has a key. A black dot means a non-reusable part. You'll see the arrow means that that part requires a multi-purpose grease, and you'll see that the asterisk means it's a pre-coated part. So that means it could be like a ceramic coated part or something. So in this instance, if you were replacing a door or a door skin, you will see that there are 6 different black dots that Toyota says these parts are one-time use and must be replaced. So how would I find that, for example? Well, all right, so I'm in my repair manual tab. From there, I go to vehicle exterior. From there, I click on door. Once I select door, it pops up, and all of a sudden, I see 2 black dots there. One of those black dots tells me that the front door service hole cover is a non-reusable part. That would be the vapor barrier or moisture barrier. So again, it's really important that any components you replace, you go into TIS, you look at those components to see if there's a black dot. Now, Toyota also has a crib bulletin that you can use to prove this to an insurance carrier if you need to, or an insurance carrier may need to use it to prove to their supervisor, I had to replace this part because it was non-reusable. On Toyota Crib Bulletin 188, it says Toyota does not recommend that you reinstall non-reusable parts. Those would be, for example, tail lamp gaskets, inlets, clips, grommets, etc. Also washer nozzles. Now, Toyota does have an electronic parts catalog that the industry can actually access. You can access Toyota's electronic parts catalog, and it is free. However, understand there are some differences between the parts graphics you see in the TIS and the parts graphics you see in the electronic parts catalog. TIS will not give you part numbers. An electronic parts catalog will. TIS will identify for you what's non-reusable with a black dot. The electronic parts catalog does not. So it's not a matter of using either or. It's a matter of actually using one to complement the other. Let's talk a little bit about bolt torque specs. One of the things that's very concerning to me is that people don't always take and torque their bolts back to the proper specifications it should be. You'll see in this example right here, when we went to repair manual, we went to vehicle interior and we looked at the seat belt, that there are very specific bolt torque specs for seat belt bolts. So if you have to remove a seat belt for welding purposes, like on a quarter panel or a center pillar or rocker, it's really important that you research for your technician what the torque specs are on this. Also, keep in mind that some of your Lexus vehicles will have a ceramic coated bolts. That's for some of their aluminum panels. Those ceramic coated bolts, if you torque them too tight, you'll crack the ceramic coating and it will cause galvanic corrosion. So it's very important that you research your torque specs on something as simple as a hood bolt. Let's talk about scanning. While a lot has been said about scanning, we're not here today to get into a webinar on scanning. That would be in our part 2. One of the things I want you to see, though, is in Toyota's CRIB Bulletin 191. It says, considering the fact that a capable scan tool is the only way to identify some DTCs, Toyota requires that repairs, and you see right here it says the word requires, does not say the word recommend. Toyota requires that repairers perform a health check diagnostic scan of a vehicle sustained damage. So at the end of the day, that is a case where Toyota uses a strong word. But keep in mind, it's not just about scanning the vehicle. It's also about initializations. It's also about calibrations. One of the things that Toyota and Lexus state is that if a vehicle is in an accident, you must do a seat calibration on it, what's called a 0-point calibration, and depending on the year of the Toyota or Lexus. Basically Toyota and Lexus state that you need to do this even if the vehicle is unoccupied, even if the airbag did not deploy. And if you do not do it, there's a possibility the airbag may not deploy in the proper timing in the future. This again, Toyota has a CRIB bulletin on this, CRIB Bulletin 177. Don't forget, when you disconnect a battery, Toyota has very specific procedures of things that may need to be initialized or recalibrated after you reconnect the battery terminal. Also, Toyota requires some specific seat weights or specific targets for some of these calibrations, and those can be found again in the repair manual. Also, a couple other things about scanning. If you go to Toyota's website, which we're going to show you in a moment, crrtraining.com, they have a section where they have all their Collision Pros magazines, and this is the publications that Toyota publishes quarterly. One of the things that Toyota did in Collision Pros of fall 2016 was they published an article to debunk some of the myths that people have in regards to scanning. For example, somebody submitted the question, if the dash lights are operating and there are no warning lights, is everything okay? And Toyota's response was, there are actually plenty of diagnostic codes that are not linked to warning indicators in the dash. Number 2, since the vehicle being repaired wasn't occupied, do I still need to scan it? And Toyota's answer is absolutely. Well, what about when my service department says it doesn't need to be done? Toyota actually says in their own publication, you can't rely on service technicians' advisors to give quality recommendations in the area of collision repair on a vehicle they are repairing. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Toyota actually has what they call Mythbusters in their Collision Pros Fall 2016 magazine. Now let's talk about the New Car Feature tab, NCF. And by the way, we're about 10 minutes to being completed. So I know you've been hanging in here for an hour, but we want to just get the rest of this done, and we hope you're getting value out of it. So what's in the New Car Features tab? Again, I love this tab. What it does is it's going to give me a general overview of the different components around this vehicle that may be new, especially if it's a pre-collision system. So let's look at this, for example. We have a brand new vehicle, and it was a 2018 Toyota Camry, and we went to the NCF tab, New Car Features. And what we did is we went down here to where it says the vehicle interior system, and we looked at pre-collision system general, and it actually came up and told me where the different cameras were at on this specific vehicle, like behind the grille or in the windshield area. And these are the types of things that we need to know. Now, here's what was interesting. When I looked at this pre-collision sensor that was in the grille area, one of the things that Toyota said was right here, do not subject the millimeter wave radar sensor assembly or surrounding area to a strong impact. So if I don't want to subject to a strong impact and the vehicle takes an impact in that area, then I may have to consider actually taking a scan tool from Toyota, which would be a TechStream or TechStream Lite, and utilizing that to do a function or output test to ensure that this sensor is working properly. So let's talk about a few other resources that Toyota offers. One is this website right here, crrtraining.com. When you go to this website, it's got some really awesome things. The first thing you'll see is when you log into this website, it says Collision Pros. This is where you can actually view electronic versions of any of Toyota's past publications, as well as any recent ones. Again, they do provide this quarterly, and I would encourage you to download it, read it, and share it with your staff. The next thing you will see when you go to this website, crrtraining.com, is where it says Tech Info. I select the Tech Info option, and what you'll do is you'll also see here where it says Quick Training Guides, and on the Quick Training Guides is where I have like little handbooks that tell me how to do initializations after I reconnect the battery, or how to do alignments or 0-point calibrations. So look at those Quick Training Guides. Those are really good, and that would help you technicians to understand, especially if you have a mechanic, how to do some of these procedures properly. So again, the other tab I like is if I go to where it says News. If I go to News and it pops up, you're going to see where it says Categories. One of the things they have here that I really love is called Painter's Corner. Got some awesome articles in there, as well as some videos you can share with your painters. And then you'll see a section that also says Body Corner. I will also scroll down once I go to the news section. And when I scroll down, you will see that it shows any training news that may be available, like the blind spot monitor or blueprinting the future. And then if you scroll down, you'll see a section that says videos. And there are some great videos in here that Toyota provides for free to the industry in regards to like how to perform a health check that was done by our great friend at Toyota, Eric Mendoza. Now, what are the resources if you can't find what you're looking for? So you went into TIS and you spent 3 hours in it and you just can't find what you're looking for. What are your options? Well, first of all, you can always contact Mike Anderson and my team here at Collision Advice. We're always here to help you, support you, and encourage you in any way we can. However, you do have some other resources. If you can't find what you're looking for on Toyota's website or the crrtraining.com website, your first step would be to contact your local dealer. And if not, Mr. Augustin Diaz from Toyota has been nice enough to share his personal email address with everybody that is on this call. So again, at the end of the day, Toyota is making themselves available to you because they really want to support your efforts to do a safe and proper repair. Now, Toyota also has a couple new things that they'd like us to share with you. One is that Toyota actually has a new announcement they've made in regards to a value line of Toyota radiators and AC condensers. So Tracy, if you'll help me, we're going to play this quick 2-minute video for everybody, and we hope to have them off the call within the next 5 to 7 minutes.
Sharing.
Until now, replacing radiators and condensers meant making a choice between expensive original equipment or questionable aftermarket parts. The new genuine Toyota radiator and condenser product line bridges that gap, offering genuine Toyota radiators and condensers at competitive prices. These aren't cheap universal fit products either. Despite being available for over 20 million vehicles currently in operation, each component was meticulously designed and tested to Toyota's exacting standards, meaning that you'll get the right fit, the right part, and the right price every time. With Toyota's unrivaled engineering offering the exact product-specific fits, these radiators and condensers match the performance of original equipment parts at incredibly competitive market prices. This product line is visible in all major estimating systems and is available now at Toyota dealers across the country and comes with Toyota's genuine parts warranty.
But Toyota now actually has a new line, a value line of radiators and AC condensers. There's a flyer that you can actually see and you can download from this presentation that will share with you what Toyota has in regards to their value lines of radiators and AC condensers. And these prices are in US dollars, as Canadian prices may vary. So how do you set this up within your estimating systems? Well, if you're using Auditex for estimating, there's no special setup is required. The parts are visible by default whenever it's available. If it's available through your dealer, it's automatically going to pop up. If you use CCC1, currently you do have to set it up in CCC1. However, CCC1 is moving towards like Auditex, where it will automatically just show right up in your estimating system. And it will show up under Opt-OE. And then if you use Mitchell, there's no special setup required in Mitchell. The parts are visible by default whenever available. And again, there's no custom settings. Again, it will also show up on the estimate as a Toyota genuine part. So you'll see here where it says genuine Toyota value line and then original equipment. Also, the local part is the economy line if you go into Toyota's electronic parts catalog. So if you decide to go into Toyota's electronic parts catalog, you will actually see it show up as the local part or economy part. Now, Augie, I know you had some comments that you wanted to share with the audience in regards to aftermarket radiators and AC condensers. So Augie, can you go ahead and jump on in there, sir?
Yes. Can you put the position statement and cautions that we had in there?
So what I'll do, Augie, is I'm going to make you the presenter, and you can actually share your screen with everyone. Okay?
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually going to turn the screen over to Augustin Diaz with Toyota Lexus right now, and Augie is going to share something in his test. So, Augie, we can see your screen. Take it away, sir.
Okay. I just want to inform the industry, and this is in response of the person who was requiring a stronger language in their CRIB bulletins. This is a position statement from Toyota, and look what it says. These contents do not include all necessary items of a repair and service. This manual is made for the use of persons who have special techniques and certifications. Now, if an uncertified technician perform a repair or service using only this manual or without proper equipment or tools, this might cause severe injury or to you or other persons. Now, it might cause damage to your customers' vehicles. Okay, so it's really important to use this manual along with the classes that we teach. We teach you how to use it properly. And also, look what it says here. If part replacement is necessary, the part must be replaced with the same part number or equivalent part. Do not replace it with an inferior quality part. I mean, here, Toyota Motor Company is being really specific, and this is not, somebody can interpret it their own way. This is not a recommendation. This is a direct order. If you work on Toyota's and Lexus vehicles, you must follow these guidelines. So this would answer some of the questions about the collision repair bulletins. Sometimes we don't need the collision repair bulletins because we have direct orders from Toyota Motor Company. Now, lastly, I want to point out to this. It is important to note that this manual contains various cautions and notices that must be carefully observed in order to reduce the risk of personal injury. Okay, so this is not just something that we recommend. This is an order basically from Toyota. So it is important to understand that these are not exaggerations and are possible hazardous consequences that might result from failure to follow these instructions. So that's what I want to point out. And if I have a couple of minutes, I can give you an example of the parts replacement, using OEM. For instance, in our vehicles, we have the new plug-in cars like Prius Prime, like RAVs. Now, these batteries are special batteries that have a special blanket around them, and they have to be in optimum temperature in order to perform properly. Now, when there's too cold, we have this blanket has some TC filaments to keep them warm, and when it's too hot, they use the AC system to keep them cold, right? Well, if you use an inferior let's say radiator or AC condenser, the temperature, the pressures that the low side and the high side, they're higher than the regular cars. Like for instance, on a regular AC, the low side is between 50 to 80 psi. Okay, on the high side would be 250 to 400 psi. Well, on these cars, they go way over that. If you use an inferior part, they're going to split right at the tanks, and Freon would escape, your battery would overheat, and the warranty would be void. So let's prevent accidents and use what Toyota recommends. Use OEM parts. Okay? That's my
Thanks,
comment.
Augie.
Okay.
So we've gotten a few questions, like one from Tiny at Wilson's Body Shop asking, do the value parts void any of the factory warranties if they go bad?
Oh, no. Well, these are OEM, right? So no, absolutely. On the contrary, if you use inferior parts, the warranty is void. That was the whole point. You know,
Right, but if they use Toyota's value line, that will not affect the warranty, correct?
No, it does not affect the warranty. No. On the contrary, that's what we want you to use.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, the warranty is not affected at all.
Okay, perfect. So I know that Toyota has a scanning position statement, but we got some questions from Aaron McWilliams asking what years of Toyota vehicles require a scan.
Well, there are several. They have to look at the repair manual, and usually, you know, the new vehicles like from 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. But it would be smart to do it, you know, every vehicle that comes into the shop, you know, scan it, you know, because you're going to have documentation of what's previous damage and what damage you're supposed to repair. And then whenever you finish the repair, then you have documentation that there's no codes in there. So I would scan all of them. You know, every car that has a computer, you know, needs to be scanned, in my opinion.
All right, what's the next question we have, Tracy?
Okay, so we've gotten a bunch of questions like from Steve Bacchus asking, how can you see the Toyota parts breakdown?
You go to repair manual, then click on the components door, and then you have a menu in there, and it'll show up in there, all the components and the non-reusable. Another thing is, for instance, if you click on a door and all these non-reusable parts, the reason they are there is because in some of our cars, we have a dual phase airbags. And we use pressure sensors on the doors itself. So they need to be sealed properly and with the new parts. So whenever there's an accident, a side hit, they would perform, correctly, because these pressure sensors, they deploy in 100,000 of a second, as opposed to the ones on the front frame rails. So this is a safety issue. This is not just cosmetic stuff. That's why you need to replace the glue or the butyl tape around the doors, and also the weather barrier. So if you come to our classes, we give you more in-depth knowledge of this and show you how to document your repairs and why we do that.
Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap this up in just another minute or so, Tracy. Is there any other, we'll take one or two more questions before we wrap it up, and then we'll do a quick poll for everyone.
Okay, Cheryl from Universal asked how they can purchase like seat weights and other special tools they need for some of the repair procedures.
If you go to TIS, and then you go to tools and equipment on the TIS, tools and equipment, click in there, you get a drop-down menu, and then you can search field, you can put the part number, and that'll give you everything, the address, the phone number, and all the information to purchase it. But they're sold to the public, 100%.
Okay, appreciate it. Again, hopefully you can see my screen. Our next webinar is scheduled on Friday, March 23rd at 2018. We do not have a time allotted yet. And that webinar will be live with Erica Schaefer and Dan Black of Fiat Chrysler Automotive. We hope you'll attend, because our goal in 2018 is to help you learn to research and then research to learn how to fix cars safely and properly. On behalf of Collision Advice, and Toyota, we want to say thank you so much to the Toyota team of both the USA and Canada and their help in preparing for this and the content. And if you like this webinar, please feel free to send us an email. There's a lot of stuff we did not even cover today, and we thought we probably may even do a part 2 on this if you were interested, but it just depends on the industry sees value. If you texted a question to us and we did not get your question, please email me your question at mike@collisionadvice.com. Again, that's mike@collisionadvice.com. And I will ensure to forward your email question to Augie with Toyota to get you an answer. Also, John, I do know that you did, for Michigan, my body shop, you did send me an email, and I got your question, and I am going to forward that question to Augie at Toyota for you. So, Tracy, before we wrap it up today, I want to say thank you to Tracy Dombrowski of ProMetrics and Collision Advice. She helped me to put all this content together, and she makes it good. And Augie and your team at Toyota, we appreciate your support, and we hope everybody found great value in this webinar. So thank you. God bless you, and we hope to see you on our next webinar in March. Make it a great day. Goodbye.
Amen. Oh, he didn't say it.